Well, U.S. President Donald Trump's increased tariffs on steel and aluminum are now in effect. The levies now sit at 50%. Joining us is our Parliament Hill correspondent, Glen McGregor. Glen, let's start with how senior government officials are reacting to the new taxes now in effect.
A lot of concern about this, particularly from the steel and aluminum industries as well as their labor unions, all of them raising concerns about what this is going to mean for exporters of metals to the United States. Basically, generally saying, they can handle the 25% tariffs. It would be difficult. They would take certainly a haircut on their revenues and the total amount that they're exporting to the U.S. But at 50%, it's really just unsustainable. They cannot compete in any way with American producers who are very likely going to raise their prices that they charge to other manufacturers in the United States and ultimately to consumers. It's going to raise costs on houses as well as cars in particular in the U.S. When you go up to that level. And there's been a lot of, in the last few days, some grumbling from the steel industry about the lack of forceful response from the Carney government. They want to see a very firm retaliation in kind, 50% retaliation on American metal products coming into Canada, because there is kind of a two-way trade in this. The Americans do export steel and, to a lesser extent, aluminum into Canada, and those companies want to see those retaliatory tariffs put in place right away. But Mark Carney suggesting that may not happen. Just a few minutes ago, he was heading into a caucus meeting here on Parliament Hill, was asked about these steel tariffs. This is what he had to say.
The latest tariffs on steel and aluminum are unjustified. They're illegal. They're bad for American workers, bad for American industry, and of course for Canadian industry as well. We have counter tariffs in a gross amount before remissions on over $90 billion of U.S. imports. We've acted strong. Those are in place. We will take some time, not much, some time, because we are in intensive discussions right now with the Americans on the trading relationship. Those discussions are progressing. I would note that the American action is a global action. It's not one targeted at Canada. So we will take some time, but not more, before we respond.
So really interesting comments from Mark Carney there, saying that they will take a retaliation. There will be a response, but it may not happen right away. And the reason, he says, is because they're in, quote, intensive discussions with the United States on tariffs, and it sounds like on tariffs generally. Does that mean that we are close to some kind of deal with Donald Trump to drop these tariffs, including the steel and aluminum tariffs? Quite possibly. Maybe Carney is holding back on this retaliation because he doesn't want to ruin that discussion. And as he said, he pointed out there, these are global tariffs, not just on the Canadian steel and aluminum exporters, but also those around the world, chiefly aimed at Korea, China, and to a lesser extent against Japan. So we'll see over the next day or two whether or not anything is coming out of this. And if Canada does not retaliate against this increased level on our exports of those metals, it's going to be devastating for our industry, but there may be a larger strategy here that Mark Carney is pursuing. Maybe, just possibly, those negotiations are at a crucial stage. Maybe we're getting close, Faiza, to a deal to finally end all these tariffs on Canadian products.
Yeah, here's to hoping. Glen, while we have you here, the federal Liberals are also proposing a new border security bill. What does that include?
Yeah, we know that Donald Trump's one of his big concerns, remember, going back to right after he won the election last November, when he first started talking about tariffs a couple of weeks after that, he talked about the Canada-U.S. border, his concerns about the flow of fentanyl, of course, and we've taken measures to try and crack down on that, but also on immigrants. So the government yesterday introducing a bill with a wide range of measures directed at the border, largely focused on immigration. Some increased enforcement on immigration matters, giving Canada Border Services Agency and Immigration Citizenship and Immigration Canada more powers, and it's going to make it easier for them to block people from claiming asylum. So they're going to enforce a rule that if you've been in Canada for more than a year, you cannot make a claim for refugee status, asylum claim. And they're also saying if you cross the border from the United States into Canada and then make an asylum claim, you have to do that within 14 days because of the Safe Country Act, and further crackdowns in there as well to prevent people from crossing illegally crossing the border and then claiming refugee status once they are on Canadian soil. There are some other measures in this that are going to be controversial, though. Civil libertarians are not going to like it. They're giving more power to police to do things like search your mail through Canada Post. That seems to be designed to crack down on trafficking in fentanyl, because a lot of that fentanyl is extremely powerful, even in small amounts. So it's ideally can be shipped or sent by mail. So they want to give police more power to interdict that. That's, again, something that Donald Trump is going to like. Dominic LeBlanc, the Intergovernmental Affairs Minister, went to Washington last night, had meetings with Howard Lutnick. He is very likely going to be meeting with other officials today, showing them that this new bill and some of the measures that we are taking to make the border even stronger, above and beyond the things that the Trudeau government brought in last fall to crack down on fentanyl smuggling. Will it make a difference? Will this all kind of help? So these sort of two things, part and parcel, the steel tariffs and this border bill, all designed to possibly help this negotiation that the Prime Minister is hinting is now intensive and maybe into its final stages, possibly heading towards a deal. This bill could help get that over the goal line, but there's going to be pushback. Opposition parties, particularly New Democrats and the Bloc Québécois, are not going to like some of these new provisions the bill proposes. That's going to make it harder for people to claim refugee status, and they're not going to like some of the measures that they say will infringe on people's civil liberties. Liza.
Glenn, thank you so much.